Hello. Welcome to Season 10 of The Horrific Podcast. We're two friends who live in different places but share a love for scary movies. In each episode, we both watch the same movie on our own and then record a conversation together about what we liked, what we hated, if we were scared, and maybe even some larger truths about why people watch horror movies in the first place. This season, our theme is Because We Have the Microphone. And because we have the microphone, you will listen as we discuss a bunch of movies that we just kind of feel like watching with no rhyme or reason. Think of it as a collection of movies that we've referenced a lot in previous seasons or been curious about for a long time. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the episode. I feel really silly because I didn't think we were doing High Plains Drifter until quite a bit later this season.
Yeah.
And so I went into this expecting something totally different.
Yeah. I went into this not realizing it was going to be that much of a comedy.
Yeah, well, yeah. There were an absurd number of similarities to High Plains Drifter. Yeah. I would love to be able to talk to Sam Raimi and find out if that was like a deliberate choice.
Oh, I'm sure.
But it was pretty funny that we included both of these movies this season.
You see it, you understand, like, you know, Westerns have this generally they have a similar
like the
storyline. Yeah, and yeah, this is just fit right in. Just even with the way that Bruce Campbell was talking, like, you know, some of the, you know, it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, I get this for sure.
Well, it was crazy because it was like a horror movie set in medieval times that was a Western. I'm just like, wait, what? Yeah. What's going on here? Yeah. Especially even when he had that repeater rifle there at the end. I was just like, they're fully embracing it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you hadn't seen this one, right?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I hadn't either. I've always kind of heard about it, but I didn't want to watch it until I'd seen the first two in the Evil Dead series.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that I did. You know, this. I feel like it was a very interesting progression. You know, from like where it started to this. I think watching this on its own would have been very confusing. But yeah, having stuck around was interesting. But question I have for you: how often do you think the third movie in a series has by far the biggest budget?
I would assume, like, for the people who do like Paranormal Activity, Blair Witch, like that, start off with small budgets, but it has to be like one of the rare occasions.
Yeah, I could not believe it when I started this one after watching the first two.
Yeah,
just the camera quality, the audio quality, everything about it was just light years ahead, you know, of the last one. I mean, this one really felt like an actual like 90s movie. Like an early 90s movie with some budget behind it, whereas the first two really just felt more like kind of home DIY projects.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I think that's the thing. It's like, I feel like this is the perfect example of like just friends who created a film, and then finally they were like, oh wow, we can get some money, we can make like a legit money, get some legit money for this.
Yeah.
And actually have people say, like, let's just throw it all in, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, because, like, the first one to the second one had, like, 10 times the budget, and then this one had, like, another 3 times on top of that.
Yeah.
So if you look at, like, where it started and where it ended up, that is just mind-blowing to me. But it's also weird that I also think the first one was by far the best.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I will introduce it, then you can do your fun facts, and then we will get into the gory, bony details. In 1992, Universal Pictures brought us Army of Darkness, the third installment in Sam Raimi's Evil Dead series. In this movie, Bruce Campbell resumes his role as Ash and picks up right where Evil Dead 2 left off. After being sent back in time while banishing a demon, Ash must help a medieval army defeat the extra evil army of darkness to save humanity and his chances at going back to his original time. This movie was made on a budget of $11 million and brought in over $21 million at the box office. It can currently be rented for streaming on Amazon Prime Video. So what did you learn about this movie?
So one of the working titles for this, which I've been so excited, this is why I asked if we were going to do Army of Darkness today earlier, was one of the running names was the Medieval Dead. Medieval Dead.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, I was honestly kind of bummed that it didn't.
Yeah,
they didn't do it. I don't know why, but then they were gonna go with like the boring name, like the Evil Dead 3 Army of Darkness, and then they were gonna make a joke and say like Bruce Campbell in the Army of Darkness fighting or something like that to basically like kind of make a play on like the people who have to have their names, like Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein kind of thing. But the other thing too is fans of this series, which is like, I guess there's like really diehard fans of this series, which is cool. I can get behind something like that. You can take movies 1, 2, and 3 and like edit them together, and it just makes like a really long. Well, no, it just makes 3 movies. It's not that crazy long. Like this one was only like an hour and 20 minutes. So
yeah,
it'd be shorter than Braveheart, give or take. But I kind of like one day want to sit down and just watch all 3, like spliced together like that. I feel like the difference between the second and third ending are a little bit different, but that's for later. So apparently this movie took a while for them to finish editing and like push out, so much so that in an interview, Bruce Campbell goes on to say how he felt like he wasted about a year of his life for them to like edit and put it out and all that. Per usual, also with this film, Sam Raimi had to, or with this series, Sam Raimi had to like fight to get it rated R, and instead of NC-17 in America. And then also, just my last fun fact about this is, which because fans love this movie so much, there are a ton of facts out there. Like this is one that there's not a lack of facts out. Just trying to keep it slim. But this is the first and last series film that Bruce Campbell started as the lead, which I kind of understand, but because he also went to television to do Burn Notice, so yeah, that's where you make the real money.
Mm-hmm. That long-term career money.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Get syndicated, rake it in.
Oh, hey, goodness, make some money doing that. Those are my facts for the film.
Very nice.
Talk about difference of like how different this movie is from the last. It just blows your mind.
By the last, do you mean Evil Dead 2, or do you mean People Under the Stairs?
And Evil Dead. No, Evil.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's pretty wild. This one is definitely, and I have a hard, because like it's hard to say it's not a horror movie because it's about an army of dead people attacking and trying to fight them off, and lots of stabbing and like demons and stuff. But then also it's like very much kind of like a slapstick comedy, and also very much like an action movie. Like a lot of it really reminded me of a movie like Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And
100%.
And there was the scene where where Ash is fighting against the like skeleton hands coming up out of the graveyard, that is like very blatantly, like very obviously meant to be like a Three Stooges like reference.
Mm-hmm.
And that just went on and on. Like the movie spent a lot of time on that, and it was just it's weird, it's quirky. I feel like if that's the type of thing you're into, is kind of like the horror comedy, kind of over the top actiony stuff, this is like probably more in your wheelhouse than any movie I've ever seen.
Yeah,
that's not really my scene, but a lot of people liked it.
Yeah, I think I definitely enjoy those, and so when watching this, for like if it were just for personal, I think it'd be a little bit better, but for the horror aspect, it's definitely a little bit weaker. I mean, I think if you consider this a horror film, you would almost have to consider like Brandon Fraser's Mummy, The Mummy. It's like the same kind of concept, but the thing is this movie had I feel like I feel like this, in my opinion, would be like if it had a little bit more horror elements to it, would have been like a really good horror comedy film. Just from like the fact of like, it seems like any time we watch something that's horror comedy, it just ends up, for the most part, ends up pretty whack. You know, it's just boring and, you know, trying to be funny. With this, it was like Bruce was just like, I felt like they just told him like, hey, you can go over the top, and he's like, I'm on it. Mm-hmm. And that's just, what ended up happening, I feel like.
Yeah. This one also felt very, very disconnected from the previous ones. Mm-hmm. Like they definitely had the scene where they had like the kind of the camera like flying low over the ground, and then there's the part where he takes shelter in the cabin underneath that windmill, and it's kind of similar to like stuff from Evil Dead 2. But for the most part, this was a totally different type of movie as well. You know, it was more, I have to get the townspeople ready to fight against this supernatural army of invaders. It wasn't the same, like, I'm stuck in a cabin going crazy. Yeah. And so it had such a different feel to it all the way around, which normally in a series, you know, I like, but I guess like you were talking about, the whole, the really leaning into the comedy parts of it just didn't really keep my attention as much.
Yeah. I think, it was like Bruce Campbell's character was like a mixture of like John Wayne and like John Wayne and Clint Eastwood, like Western characters, like just with
and Ace Ventura.
And Ace Ventura, yeah, for sure. But it was also, what it kind of reminded me of was, it just seemed like this was a nod to the Holy Grail. Monty Python's Holy Grail.
For sure.
It's like a
similar sense of humor and stuff. Yeah, mm-hmm. I can see that.
So it was, and honestly, like, I would prefer this over Holy Grail, just because honestly it's shorter. But spin facts here.
Yeah.
But you know, I definitely appreciate the idea. Like I still like firmly believe that this is DIY, like people that are deciding like they're dumb for letting us do this, so let's just do it. Like, let's do whatever we want, you know?
Yeah, this movie did not have like a Hollywood influence, you know what I mean? Like it didn't feel like this is a very like let's tone down the weirder parts and let's make this very acceptable to a mass audience. This, once again, just like we discussed when talking about Evil Dead 2, was them saying, oh, we have a lot of budget, we are absolutely going to double down and do a thing that the people who are super into this universe will love.
Yeah.
And I think that for the most part, you know, they did a lot of those things well. But there were, you know, we also talked about with the second one, there were some scenes that almost seemed kind of like amateur. And it's like, this is a big step up from the first one, but there's also some stuff that's not great. And like, there were definitely scenes in this one where the camera lens was just dirty.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like you could straight up see like the dust on the lens and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, $11 million budget, you know, over 3 times what you had to work with before. And we still kind of got that stuff going on. But then the other side of it is there were a lot of things in it that were like super creative that, you know, you don't see in every movie and that felt very unique to this one. And so I don't know, this series is just very curious to me, and I really, really liked the first one. And then now having watched the second and third, I'm like, I'm not rabid about these. I wouldn't, like, I have no desire to go back and rewatch Evil Dead 2, but at the same time, I'm just kind of like morbidly fascinated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think when it started getting, I think for me, one of the reasons why I kind of liked it was like, just like initially, like when Bruce Campbell makes it back out of the well, and it like from that point on, he was just like insulting them, like your primitive brain. Like he was just so insulting and so like assertive, like
he was Clint Eastwood in High Plains Drifter.
Yeah. He was just like. It just made my day. I was like, I wish I could talk to people that way. You know, I think that was what it boiled down to. It was just like, man, I really wish I could insult these. But
Yeah, in my notes I had that he firmly establishes himself as the alpha of the castle.
It was just like immediately. He's like, I got this gun, you guys don't.
Yeah.
You know?
And then he walks over and just tears into that one guy.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny to me.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
It's like insulting. Yeah, here's the thing with this movie, I think I just laughed more at most of it. I mean, even, with overtaking notes. I mean, if you boil this down to what it is, like, okay, storyline, apart from like the traveling back in time to 1300 AD, like apart from that, like just the storyline just had like some gaps in it that just was a little confusing of like,
no, surely
like
not.
how did he know that the book was, it was just
yeah,
just things that came up, you're just like, but you're just like, this is just like, at this point, okay, this is just a comedy, and it's just, that's what I feel like they set it out to be, and that's what they made. And maybe it was because like, hey, we have a better budget now. We've kind of accomplished what we wanted to do with these Army of Darkness, but these people are going to pay us, so let's just make something that we want to make.
Yeah, and I think that this movie is not trying to be anything at all other than exactly what it wants to be. And I do admire that, right? Like, yeah. I feel like it pulled off very well the vision of what it was supposed to be. And I think that's probably a reason, and the second one, much the same. And I think that's one reason these movies have stuck around as, kind of cult classics.
Yeah. It's funny if you think about how people like become attached to these films, because I will say like they are good films, but it's just like and I have my like cult films,
sure. Yeah.
People Understairs, which was more a higher budget than these, and not that I don't like these, it's just crazy to think like, man, this is what people attach to. There's like groups of these fans out. I like it. Like I just think it's interesting how that kind of comes into play.
Yeah, and I think these have definitely worked their way into pop culture. I mean, when there was the scene where he's kind of rallying the people around the castle, and he's like, "Go ahead, run, go home, cry to your mama. But me, I'm through running." That line, that passage, is definitely sampled in a song that I listened to a lot as a teenager, but I had no idea what it was from. And I tried to find it so I could reference that before this episode, but I couldn't figure out what it was. But yeah, like, and then, the name Ash or Evil Dead or the guy with the chainsaw hand, like all that stuff is endured, like it's a thing that is there and it has lasting appeal. And I think that this movie really was something unique. Like I can't point to anything else and say, oh yeah, it was like that. I mean, even like borrowing the story points from High Plains Drifter or other Westerns, it's still like the way that the movie was made and its sense of humor and its visual aesthetic and everything else. I felt like we're just really freaking unique even after all this time.
Yeah. I mean, I was just in a meeting not too long ago where an executive made a reference to Boomstick. And it was just like I knew what they were referencing, even though without seeing the film yet. And it was just like, man, that's crazy. That's got all the way up to like this, like almost 70-year-old,
Yeah, wormed its way into pop culture.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing too. Like, I just thought it was also really like, I think what my favorite thing about it was like talking about the series of this of Evil Dead is how it starts off, in the cabin, second one's cabin, this one medieval times, but how it ends with like, he does like still fight at, has the, lever action rifle that he uses at the end, but it's just like, you just kind of think like, like he passed up, like he was just like, his goal was to get the hell out of there. He got out of there, and now he's just back at his
just doing the same thing.
Yeah, just like checking out at again. And it's like, oh man, this seems relatively boring. And thankfully, I mean, I don't know if thankfully, but they did add that at the end. But it's like, man, it actually for me, I think it would have been funnier if it just ended with him just checking people out at the end. And it was just done. It's just like he just went through all that, and it was just over.
And he's like, maybe I should have stayed.
Yeah.
Right. No, I thought that was really an interesting element of this one, that they showed his life, like kind of before and after.
Yeah.
And at first, when it went back to the end, it was like the whole thing almost felt like a daydream. like he's just bored at work and he's, thinking about like all these crazy scenarios he could find himself in.
Yeah.
Like fantasizing himself as an action hero, just because life is so boring. And I kind of liked it on that level, but then they had the big like over the top action sequence at the end, which was fun too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good call.
But I had read that there were multiple endings to this one, but I didn't do any more looking into what those were. I'm assuming you saw the same version that I did on Amazon, which was it ends with him in the store, and it's like he's been telling the story to a coworker, and then there's another female coworker that's like, well, why didn't you stay? And then she gets attacked, and then he shoots and kills the attacker, and then he says something about like, well, maybe I'm a king here after all or something, and then gets the girl, and then it's over. But I don't know anything about what the other endings would have been.
Yeah, so what I kind of found was, and I think this was just UK and US, but so we have that ending, which is the one I also watched. But the alternate ending has Ash taking a potion that makes him sleep for like a century for each drop of the potion he drinks, and then he goes into a deep sleep. However, he drank one too many drops and wakes up in a barren post-apocalyptic landscape. The final shot is Ash screaming in rage at the red sky. So the Great Britain video version shows the potion ending. The version in U.S. theaters showed the she-demon ending that we saw. What's also funny is like Australia and Japan like had different different scenes too. Like one is like when Ash is in the pit, he decapitates the female Deadeye is what they call him, and a previously deleted shot of black blood splashes on the wall. Like, I mean, there's just little things that they like could add there or had to remove. But that ending was that's the only other one that I saw that I just assumed was it. That was it. Now on the German limited edition VHS that came out, they made one ending out of both alternative endings. It starts with Ash asleep, where he takes a drop. Suddenly, a text card appears which says Ash has a dream while he was sleeping over centuries, and then the ending in the supermarket starts. So I assume it's those two, but if any of the people who are listening know anymore, definitely let us know, and if we can watch them, let us know that too.
Yeah.
I was glad we watched it. I was definitely happy. I would definitely watch this series again too. Like I said, I kind of want to watch them just in. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I'm going to spend like 4 hours of my time, I'd rather not watch like Lord of the Rings. I'd rather watch this. Also, I finally found it in my notes. When you mentioned the plot holes earlier, I knew that I had something in my notes about that, and I just found it. And I thought it was funny that the guy with one hand was training all the people in the castle how to use two-handed weapons. Oh, man. From a century he'd only been in for like 2 days. Yeah. That's great.
Well, cool. Yeah, we've done it. We finished off the Evil Dead series.
We did. It was good.
Which is a thing you and I have talked about for a long time, about like wanting to see all of them, and now we've finally done it. So, season 10, still a victory.
Good on you, mate.
Just wait till next week when we watch Under the Skin Part 3.
You gotta be...
And that's it for today's episode. If you've listened this far, then thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We're always looking for new ideas, so if you have any questions, comments, or movie suggestions, please send us an email at thehorrificpod@gmail.com, or feel free to comment on or message our Facebook page. Just search for The Horrific Podcast. Thanks for listening.